Hey everybody, this is Steve. I'm recording this out in my backyard this morning, and so if you hear a bunch of weird bird noises and stuff, that's what that's all about. Anyways, listen, we're already at the end of the second week, which is like being through the first month of a class. That's just the crazy pace that these 7.5 week classes go. So I want to run through a few reminders of some things, and then I want to talk a little bit about the Code Academy exercise in a little bit more detail. First thing is, if you haven't done so yet, be sure to send me a copy of the text that you intend to turn into a hypertext. Remember some few basic rules about this. It has to be something that you wrote previously. It should be somewhere, between say 5 and 15 pages long. That's kind of a broad category, but I'm saying something that's a little bit longer than a couple of pages, but something that's not hugely long. And again, the it has to be words in a row, like a previous essay from a class or something like that. And it can't and well, those are the basic rules. What you can't do is don't give me something that somebody else wrote, because it should be something that you wrote that you have control over, and it has to be. And you can't create something specifically for this assignment. I'm assuming that if you're taking a 400 level writing class, that you have something that you wrote before that you're willing to work with. If for some reason that's not the case, let me know, and I will point you to some um, public domain words in a row text that you can work with. Okay, that's thing number one. Thing number two is be sure to post those first progress reports on your 444 WordPress portfolio site about the social media. And this is where you should explain to me, well, and everybody, because other people can read this too, where you should explain the media that you've decided to participate in, that is besides Twitter and LinkedIn, and how it's going so far. Um, I've noticed, I looked at the websites the other day, and it looks like some people, most of you have already started to do this, so you've got a handle on that. That's great. Next thing is, if you're a grad student and there's three of you in this class, you need to give me some information about who you want to interview for your social media interview graduate student project. Look at the assignment. If you have questions, ask. And the last general sort of update thing is that make sure that you're doing the reading. There's three books in this class, along with some other stuff that's on the web. There's the Shirky book, there's the Reddish book, and then there's the Krug book. I think that all three of these are very straightforward, user friendly, informative, well written, well worth it, all that kind of stuff. So you should read it because of that. But the other thing is if you don't read it, you're not going to be able to complete the writing assignments very well, because the writing assignments assume that you will be making connections to the reading in them. You see what I mean? So make sure you get a handle on those texts. Now, about Code Academy. Like I said, I looked the other day through people's WordPress 4044 sites, of the pages that I've linked to on this website. And so far, so good. I think that there are a few of you who still need to finish these exercises. A lot of you have finished them. A lot of you have finished them mostly with a few little errors here and there. And what I've done is I've posted on EMU Online something that's called Update 1, where I sort of like point out if you've made a couple of these mistakes and stuff, and so you'll want to address that. But some general things overall. One is that I think this is the first time I've worked with Code Academy too, and I'm pretty impressed. I think that it is a pretty nice walkthrough of the basics of HTML and CSS. Certainly enough to get us started for our purposes in this class. But be patient, because it is a little buggy. I mean, some of you have already commented on it in terms of when you type in their editor, it'll automatically close the tag or add an extra quotation mark or something like that. And I don't personally necessarily always want that myself. And so there's that. And then there's been a couple times where I've tried to click on finish things, and it's kind of worked. Like you'll see next week, for those of you who haven't gotten there yet, there's a table exercise that sort of works and sort of doesn't. So be patient with it and recognize that that might be part of the problem. But generally speaking, HTML and CSS and computer kind of coding type things like that are things where you have to follow the instructions exactly. This is one of the things that I think that a lot of students in a class like this have challenges with, because, if you're an English major of some flavor, we're kind of used to close enough. You have your interpretation of that story. I have my interpretation of that story. We can both be right. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of leeway in the field that we're in, generally speaking, about what constitutes correct. But when it comes to coding, when it comes to HTML and CSS and other kind of computer coding, it's either right or it's wrong. I mean, there's no in between zone, and it can be wrong from very, very little things. If you miss a quotation, if you miss a bracket, if you miss a slash, if you misspell, if you type img space snc instead of src, it just won't work. And it can be maddening trying to find the mistakes that you made. But that's just kind of the way that it is. So make sure that you're looking at the instructions both from Code Academy and the instructions I've given you for how to put stuff up on people.english.edu. Follow those instructions exactly. And this gets to the other thing. The most common mistake, error, thing that people did slightly wrong with the first batch of Code Academy exercises is they created HTML files called stuff like mywebpage.html or firstproject.html or something like that. What I want you to do, and you can look at the example that I've set up on my website, my example website for the class. I'll link to it below here. What I want you to do is create directories or folders. Call those directories or folders project 1, project 2, etc. No spaces. Spaces are bad in file names. And then you want to name the main file. You want to name the main file in a directory, a folder, index.html, all small letters. That's the default name for a HTML file in a directory. And there's a good reason for that, because that means that allows you to have a directory where people can't just be seeing all the files that are in there. And that's just the grammar of the way these things work on the web. So make sure that you're doing that. The other thing is that if you're having problems with this stuff, be sure to ask. I mean, that's how I get paid the big bucks. That's what I'm here for. However, let me just mention this. First, it's okay to use Twitter to ask other people for help, or even to use the website to ask other people for help. In other words, it doesn't all have to come through me, because there's some of you who know how to do this coding stuff just as well as I do. So that's part of the deal in terms of the tech angle of the class. If you're someone, as I said the first day, first video I made for this, if you're someone who needs some extra support in making your websites, that's fine. Go ahead and seek that out. But if you're someone who already knows how to do this stuff, that's fine too. Help other people. So you can help each other. The other thing is that typically I don't respond to emails about HTML and CSS problems for at least a few hours after I get them. And here's why. It is very common for me to get an email from somebody saying, "Oh my God, it doesn't work. What am I doing wrong? Blah, 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 blah." And then, like 2 hours later, I'll get an email from the same person who says, "Oh, never mind, I figured it out." So what I'm saying is, a lot of times people are able to figure out their mistakes without my help, which is great. That's what I prefer. Okay, so you can ask, but it might take me a little bit to get back to you. These are assignments also not to run away from, because basically you need to finish the Code Academy exercises in order to finish the other web-based exercises for the class. So you're essentially not going to be able to pass the class if you're not able to finish these Code Academy exercises. So, if you're thinking, well, I'll just kind of like ignore this one and work on the other ones, it's not going to work that way. Okay, so if you need help, be sure to ask. Don't avoid it. And the last thing I want to say about this is, when you're working with these exercises, you need to have a happy place. Okay? Now, my happy place is maybe like in, say Hawaii, with the beaches and rainbows and palm trees and, lovely ocean breezes, stuff like that. Okay? Your happy place can be wherever you want. That's totally up to you. But you need to have a happy place with this stuff, because it can be really frustrating if you're just with your computer. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get. So listen. Just realize that this can be kind of frustrating and it can be difficult to do at times, but we're all in this together. So have your happy place. Good air, bad air, and you'll get through it. We'll get through it together. Okay, get all this stuff done. Lots to do. I'll see you online.